Hey there, and welcome to Money and You. I'm Michelle Perkins, your host. My search for more fulfilling work led me to career and business coaching, where I stumbled upon a game-changing discovery. Money issues often start with our mindset and habits. You see, our relationship with money is the key to overcoming those frustrating financial obstacles. As an entrepreneur, coach, and problem solver, I'm passionate about helping you create a great relationship with money. Because, turns out, that's the foundation for a limit-free life. Each week on Money and You, I speak with amazing guests about all things money, mindset, practical tips, and everything in between. We're here to give you new insights, education, and empowerment so money can be one of your favorite relationships. So join us for some lively conversations and let's transform your financial life together. Hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of the Money and You Show. I'm Michelle Perkins, your host, and I'm super excited about today's show. I think this is going to really spark some new ideas for listeners. And, we're talking about retiring early. We're talking about, our guest has a fantastic story to tell and great insights into what it means to reach success early and be financially free. And then what do you do with that? And I love what he's doing with it. I'm going to introduce you to today's guest, great guest. Daniel C. Rogers is the award-winning author of Escape the Clock, your program guide for financial freedom and early retirement. After a successful 20-year career in the tech industry, he achieved financial independence and retired early to pursue his passion for helping others. Driven by a desire to give back, Daniel wrote Escape the Clock to provide a clear roadmap for anyone seeking financial freedom. Today, he continues to empower individuals by volunteer teaching financial literacy in Washington State, providing free one-on-one financial coaching, hosting the Escape the Clock podcast, and continuing to write. His work focuses on demystifying personal finance and helping people build achievable plans to live life on their own terms. Welcome, Dan.
Thank you so much for having me, Michelle. So happy to be here.
Welcome. I am so excited that you're here. And, you just hit the nail on the head for me, because living life on your own terms has kind of been the theme and why I started my originally career coaching business, because I felt like people weren't living their career on their own terms. So thank you so much. This is a great topic. And what I'm really excited about, and, I hope people listening will stick around, because I think sometimes people hear this and think, I'll never be able to retire and I'll never be financially free. It seems like such an unattainable goal for so many. So I would love for you to tell us a little about your story and maybe dispel that myth.
Yeah, it felt like an impossible goal for me as well. My family very much was in poverty situation. We were lower middle class, kind of the situation where you really don't feel like you have any control in life, especially when it comes to your financial well-being. But I did the only thing I could do as a younger person, and that was educate myself. So I did the best I could at school. I put myself through college. I remember selecting a job, not because it was my passion, but because I'd done some research and saw that the income could be okay. Maybe I could grow that way. But I ended up with, over $100,000 in debt. And this is between school loans, credit cards. And plus, I got married right out of college, and my spouse wanted to go to graduate school, which, I had to, support that. And then getting a home and starting a family, costs just pile up. And our journey starts with debt, and income can start low, but we have so much money we're ever going to make in our lives. It's a finite number. And all I could do was say, okay, I can feel overwhelmed by this and live paycheck to paycheck for the whole life, or maybe I can try to learn how to get ahead. And I did that. And I started building this, what I call a program plan for myself, because financial independence felt like an impossible goal. It's like far off. How do you possibly get to there in a situation where your net worth is just so negative? But I was able to break it apart, learn, and really start to see measurable results. And then I could make moves from data to really start to get ahead. And before I knew it, I was kind of on this glide path, and I passed the goal. And I realized, oh, I'm teaching these kinds of things at my job. I can help. I'm doing this for some of the biggest companies in the world. I can teach program management to anybody. And this is a goal that's relevant to everyone. It doesn't matter how much money you make, where you are in life. Financial independence is a truly important thing because it's about freedom. And that's why I ended up writing the book I did. And I'm trying to help as many people as I can.
Thank you. That is beautiful. And, you set a good example of somebody who this wasn't easy for you. But you also, the way you talk about it, it also doesn't sound like you were struggling kind of against yourself, which I think is what happens to people. You did have some kind of a mindset and some sort of a relationship with money that allowed you to believe that this was possible if you did certain things, which I think is very, very important. And sometimes we don't know what those things are. You were at least able to identify them.
To a certain degree, I definitely made mistakes. I remember I didn't know what a 401k was. And the option was, how much money do you want to put into this thing? And I remember thinking back then, I'm not going to put anything into this. I can't afford to have anything come out of this paycheck. Now, luckily, I went and had some conversations, including with my father. And I said, hey, what should I do? He said, just do the match. Don't think about it. You'll thank me later. And then I realized, okay, education is the most valuable thing I can do. Now, I get what you're talking about, though. There was a will there, an intrinsic drive to want this, and it drove me forward. And I am a structured person. I like to think, okay, I don't want to feel like I have no control. What can I do to get some control here? Maybe I can do it through planning. And what I found is with a will, there is a way, and that way is the plan. And once you know how to make the plan, you can get there. You do have to have that drive, though.
Oh, I love that. There's so much that you've said. So the one thing that you mentioned earlier was about the data. And that's one thing I feel like people ignore the data. I've done it myself, so it's not a feeling, it's an actual lived experience. But you, whether you like it or not, you have to sort of measure and track your money to have that data that you need to do whatever you want to do. And I think that's the first thing. And I think that's something many of us avoid because, frankly, a lot of times looking at the data is depressing. I hear that a lot from people I work with, and I'm trying to get them to do things. I said, but I get depressed when I spend time with my money or I look at things. So did that happen to you at all? I mean,
yeah, look, you can have a healthy and you can also have an unhealthy relationship with the data. There are people that will look at their investment portfolio obsessively throughout the day, or their bank account balance, and they'll feel a lot of emotional response to a downtick. And those emotional responses can cause bad outcomes because, if you stay in the stock market, for example, for a long term horizon, you're going to do 6% better on average than someone who is more day trading and reacting to those things. So the data can hurt you if you're not careful about it. But then like you said, is data avoidance. I don't want to look at it because it makes me feel bad. But the truth is, if you don't know where your money's going, you have no way that you can possibly make a move. You're blind. You're purposely blinding yourself. And you don't have to do this by yourself. You can sit down with somebody, a financial advisor, a partner, a friend, somebody, say, look, I just need some help here. I know this is going to be hard. I need to look at this, but I'm hoping you can help me feel better about when I'm doing well. A good financial advisor will do that. They won't just shame you and make you feel bad about it. And once you do that and you kind of see what you're doing well, you lean into those things. And when it's not going so well, you start building an action plan to make improvement. And it's incremental. It doesn't happen overnight, but you do have to look at it, but you can't let the data control you, is what I've learned.
That's great advice. Yes. And I think we know when we've spilled over into obsessively looking at things, just like I know when I'm obsessively looking at Instagram and I need to stop, it can go the same way. But I feel like a level, like I look at my bank accounts every morning because I didn't used to, and then I would have problems. And now I can anticipate problems or fix things ahead of time or just have the knowledge of what's happening. But I tend not to. That's it. Once a day, usually. You also mentioned a plan, and that's the other thing that I feel like people don't do. They're waiting for something, waiting to be making a certain amount or to, get out of debt or to, something needs to happen to trigger them to create a plan. And I think that's also problematic.
Yeah, absolutely. There's reactive plans, the ones forced on us because we kind of let a problem go too far, such as what you might be forced to do in a bankruptcy, right? That's being forced to put a plan in action. That doesn't feel good. Or because you know too much credit card debt, now you have to go and do a debt elimination plan. What I'm talking about is proactive planning because, you know, if you follow like prospect theory or any of this kind of like financial psychologies and understand our dual selves of we have our emotional selves and we have our kind of more rational self. The rational self's the planner and it's there and we can leverage it and it can allow us to make it so that we're not emotionally reacting in our worst moments and hurting ourselves. Because the truth is we can be our own worst enemy a lot of the time if we let it. But with a good plan, we can be a little bit more on rails and we can do things along the line of, hey, I have a goal. I know what enough is. It's not chasing infinite net worth. Like that doesn't result in anything good. It's about knowing what's enough for the life you're trying to fund. Once you know that, is the thing I did getting me closer or not? If it's not, what else can I do about it? And that's good data. That's data that's allowing us to learn, improve, and make great moves and review it with somebody and get perspectives and insights that we might miss on our own. And now we're planning with intention. We're planning because we're trying to win back our time so we can live our lives the way we want to live. That's only good stuff. I don't know anyone who wouldn't want that to say, hey, like, let's take money out of the equation. You can kind of do the things you want. Yeah, maybe right now it's sleeping on a beach or something. That's fine. But ultimately, you do have to kind of discover what's your North Star? What are you working for? What are you funding? And the plan helps you get there.
Yeah, thank you. That's so good. And I love the way, you know, you do have to define what success is for you. If you just are like, I want to be as rich as I can be, like that's not actually a target. That is, I don't know what that is, but it's just too vague.
And if you get into a retirement, either forced or otherwise, and your whole life was based on getting richer or increasing net worth, you can't really stop that. You're still in that mindset, but you might feel a lack of agency. And that's very frustrating. And I think folks in those situations feel like a lack of control and anxiety building up. And so when you know that, you know, work is not forever and there is a life that we're trying to build and we can, you know, make the moves to get to that, then it's about when do you want to start living that next phase of your life? Is it a standard retirement at 67? Is it an earlier retirement? Whatever you want to call it. But at some point, kind of work will stop and we can start to try to live that next phase. And I think the plan is about that. Your North Star to that moment, working back, demystifying it, making smart goals that are actionable. And I'm a project manager. So for me, it's all about take something that sounds impossible and then organize multiple people towards making it a reality and being honest about contingencies because things will go wrong and we have to be willing to adjust as we go.
Wow, I love that. I love the way you sort of applied that to money, that way of thinking. And so what happened to you when you were, you know, you were working in the tech industry? What happened that allowed you to be done in 20 years?
Yeah. So a lot of people think, oh, he worked at tech. He worked at big tech. He just made a lot of money and that's why this happened. But that's not the truth. A lot of people I know at big tech made a lot more money than me and they were nowhere near any kind of financial independence. I just want to first say, like, it's more about your income and your desired lifestyle. And there's a math formula here, right? And I put that in my book to help people understand what enough is, because once you understand you can do this with any level of income earning power and some level of reasonable lifestyle, you can get there. Now, I made moves. I was working in tech in Ohio in the Midwest, and I kind of hit a ceiling of my income earning potential. So I said, okay, if I want to get ahead to my goal faster, what do I do? So I said, okay, I'm going to have to go apply for some of these bigger companies. And I was able to apply at Microsoft. I was able to get a job there. I had to move my wife and 2-year-old son across the country away from family. And they were amazing. And we went and made this journey of relocation. But it's a higher cost living, like all the costs go up all of a sudden. So it's a trade-off and there's always trade-offs. So you might be making more income, but you have more costs. And you have to realize there's levers you can control. I can control income on one spectrum and I can control expenses on another spectrum. If I don't let my cost of living completely, inflate to a degree where it's matching my neighbors or whatever it is, well, now I actually am really getting ahead because I have this much higher income And I'm now only have a little bit higher expenses. And now I sped up my path to my goal X number of years. And that's what I did. I was making big moves like that to help me get there faster.
Yeah, so you were very conscious and intentional about what you were doing.
Yeah, because I had data and I had a goal and I had these milestones I had to hit, right? So debt elimination, I run that as a project in my program. I run things like our cost of living or expenses as a project in the program. And there's things you can do to hit your number goals better. Passive income. How much money am I making passively without work? That was actually a number I needed to hit. And I tried a bunch of different stuff until I got there. And that has turned out to be extremely smart, just to be able to have that cash flow when I no longer have a paycheck, because it brought psychological safety to the thing I did. It feels good to still get paid when you're not working. So there's a bunch of things in there. And look, anyone can learn these. These are tools. But if you don't know when and how to use the tool, it doesn't really matter. You can inherit a tool shed from your grandfather or whatever. And if you don't know how any of the tools work, it doesn't matter. You might have all the best tools in the world. For me, it was about understanding what tools were applicable to my goals in my life and using them effectively and seeing how much further it got me towards the destination. And that is the power of a really good program plan for financial independence.
Oh, yeah. And one of the things I'm loving about this so much is how you're equating it to this program, this project management sort of approach. It takes all the emotion out of it. I mean, yeah. And I think that's so important for the world of finance. If you can, and you can't totally get rid of it, but you're putting it in this box of something that you sort of mechanically can do. It's not being driven by emotional decision making, which I think is one of the things that really impacts our.
And you can even optimize that in your program plan. So you could say, okay, where do I struggle? I know I should be investing 10% of my paycheck into some type of investments, but I'm not doing it. There's a reason you're not doing it. And so if you realize, though, you need to do it, then you can start to automate it. And now all of a sudden, there's this thing happening in the background, because what I've learned is we will adjust our standard of living to the amount of cash that we have coming in to our lives. So if someone pays you $10,000 in that month, you could probably find a way to spend that $10,000. Now, if it was $8,500 that month, you could probably adjust to the $8,500, but the rest of it isn't just thrown away. It's being put somewhere for your future self, because saving and investing is about your future self and borrowing is about moving money from your future to your present. So when you understand that life cycle and you start to make moves to both benefit yourself today and yourself tomorrow, now you're really living, and you can make that automated to ensure that your rational self is being optimally working for you. And then you can also use your emotional self. You have these extrinsic motivators you can create, such as having people in your life that celebrate you for hitting your goals, going out to a dinner because you had a big milestone. Maybe you paid off a mortgage. Go celebrate it. Don't just go, oh, okay, fine, my number went that much higher, whatever, I'll go to work. No, go celebrate it. Actually celebrate yourself. Like, feel good about the things you're doing, because the emotional part matters too. And when you do that well, you do it intentionally, the program can actually feel like something that you really enjoy doing.
Oof, I love that. And, I think it's very important to celebrate yourself. I also think it's very important to sort of track your successes. I mean, literally write them down at the end of the week. I mean, these things have a way of building momentum and keeping you from, just falling back into some reactive emotional place, which there's nothing wrong with emotions. It's just that, they're so much a part of us, and they're so important, actually. But that level of awareness about them, I think, is what a lot of people are maybe not as well versed on.
Well, there's also the fact that sometimes we don't understand why we're acting emotionally in the way that we do. Dr. Bill Clance studied this idea of money scripts, or how we our upbringing, our childhood affects, he's a financial psychologist, how it affects our relationship with money today, how we value it, why we act or react to money in the emotional ways that we do. And you might find you really understand yourself potentially, but maybe you don't understand your spouse or your kids or someone else in your life? Well, it's because we all process it differently. We all handle it differently. But when we want to take the emotional side out and just focus on the progress side, we can do that. But when the emotional side is helping us and not hurting us, then we can lean into that as well. And they can both be benefits.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you give people an example of when it's helping us?
Yeah. Well, let me start with the hurting. So, like, if you're saying things, if you have this mental dialogue in your head and you're saying things like, my self-worth is based on my net worth, things like that, these inner dialogues, which are actually somewhat destructive or at least anti-productive, that's when it's hurting you, right? That's when it's preventing you from spending and enjoying all the fruits of your labor. You should spend even when you're saving. Like, you need to enjoy your life now. It's not about sacrifice and living in scarcity so that we can have abundance tomorrow. That is not what financial independence is about. It's about smoothing. It's about smoothing it all out so that we can enjoy the life we want for as long as possible, because we don't know how long life is. We have to start as soon as we can to enjoy it. So sacrificing isn't the way to go. But you can have positive scripts in your life, scripts around, my happiness is based on giving, and my happiness is based on family, or I save so I can do foo, or whatever it is that your purpose is going to be. Like, once you know why you're saving for your retirement, what you want to do in that retirement, now you're living a purpose-driven life, and you can focus on the positive scripts that are helping you, live your best version of that.
Yeah, this is so good. And, I've had a lot of people on recently talking about retirement. And so that word retirement is getting really confusing because you're not retired.
No, not really.
You are, but you aren't. So how do you even define retirement?
I kind of wish I hadn't even put that word in my book, to be honest, because it's such a loaded, confusing word.
It is.
Yeah, it's more about financial freedom than it is retirement. It's about reclaiming your time so that you can follow your agenda. And when you take money out of money is it's just a means to an end. When you think of it that way, the moves you make at work, it's not based on your identity. It's based on the income that you're collecting towards living the life you want to live today and tomorrow. Now it's about freedom, and freedom is worth fighting for. It's worth enjoying. And it's definitely worth paying for if you can know if there's a price tag on freedom and you could just do that. I'm sure most of us go, okay, that's worth it. So for me, it's not about retirement, because you're right. People make fun of me all the time. They're like, you wrote a book, you're writing another book, you're podcasting, you're teaching, I'm getting a wealth management degree for some reason. Like, I don't know why I'm keeping this busy. It's just, you get excited and your passion gets tapped into, especially when you do it younger and you feel like you still have a lot of energy left and stuff to give.
Yeah, I love that. And I do think I've talked about this multiple times since I'm getting tired of hearing myself say it, but retirement really is, of your own design. And it isn't about stopping. I mean, I think some of us have this mindset that we stop and we play all day. And what the reality is, we stop and we sit around trying to figure out what to do with ourselves. And that's not purposeful and actually doesn't feel good at all and isn't even good for our health. So I think this redefining of retirement is super, super important. It also changes the game financially. Because if your idea is stopping and then you need money to take you through the next 30 years while you do no work, I mean, that's a very different animal than kind of how you're doing it.
Yeah, for sure. And a lot of people, when you ask someone, like, why would someone fail out of retirement? That's like a question you could ask somebody, and they go, oh, well, they ran out of money. And that's actually the number one fear. Yeah. But that's not always the reality. Actually, most of the reasons people leave their retirement early or otherwise is usually out of a lack of feeling of self-worth, like boredom, or wanting to go back to work because they find there might be more value in a working life than in the life that they're currently living. And it doesn't need to be that way. That's completely avoidable. Now, it's better to go through that process before you transition rather than after you transition. It could be very painful. If you go ahead and pull the trigger and leave your job, well, you're going to find yourself in this kind of emotional journey of soul searching about, like, why did you leave your job? Okay, you had your long weekend, but now what? And that now what can be really tough to go do it at that point. Maybe you'll find it, maybe you won't, but you might find yourself going, I made a mistake. I needed to take a sabbatical, or I needed to take a break or something. And I shouldn't have left the job, or I should have just switched my job. But a lot of times, that's just part life, and that's the journey we might take. But you can go through in a less painful way, especially when you're following your plan and you're realizing my plan is based on a North Star. Just like creating a business, right? We have a North Star, we have a vision, we can have KPIs we use to measure success. All of those things can be applied to our own financial freedom. And I've done it successfully, and I'm helping lots of other people do that as well.
Oh, I love this. Yeah, I think it's such a great conversation because in so many ways it extends your life. I mean, it really is a great way to look at your life. I mean, otherwise we're planning to a certain age, and then there's a whole other few decades that have no plan. I love this. Tell us about the Escape the Clock program.
Yeah. As at the end of my career, I was working at Google, and I was working on building these massive cloud programs, so super complex stuff. Sometimes these things would be multiple years in the future, organizing hundreds of people or thousands of people, people across different parts of an organization towards these things. And, we really leaned into the rigor of program management. So how do you make it so everyone can figure out, are we being successful? How do we take a step forward? How do we not take a step forward? All those things are important, especially when you have leaders who can feel blind a lot of the time and are relying on a project manager to come in and say, this is what happened. Here's the status report. Here's our KPIs. Here's how well we're doing. We're this closer to launch, or we're further from launch. We might end up delaying it, which could hurt us and cost us this amount of money. All those things are used for a reason. And the reason is because projects are 2.5 times more successful when you have a project manager on them, when you're doing actual program management implementation. Now, all of it's teachable. So I ended up spending a lot of my career teaching my team, like I was hiring and training and teaching and running programs and helping other people run their programs. All of it's teachable. And look, there's no degree for project management. There's certifications, but it's not people who are going to school to this. They're learning this through life. They're learning this through their other job. Maybe they were a software developer, or maybe a product manager, or maybe they were, an admin assistant. It doesn't matter. People just go through and they realize, I have a spreadsheet here. What am I doing with this? I'm breaking stuff down. I'm measuring things. I'm trying to understand and show people where we are. You learn these things implicitly. And now, yes, you can go through and get the proper names of things and how do you compose a roadmap? How do you do all that? I teach all that in my book because I wanted people to have the proper names and techniques so that when they build their personalized plan, it's something that looks crisp and is easy to understand. And when they put it in front of someone, they go, oh, I see exactly what you're trying to do. I understand your goals. I understand your intent. I know where you are, and I can give you feedback on how to do better. When we do it that way, now we're all speaking the same language, and we can really help each other, because this doesn't need to be a solo journey at all. Actually, it's a little harder if you make it a solo journey. So teaching these things at work, and then later now, I'm seeing that these are the kinds of tools of empowerment, and empowering people with project management skills, which we already have in our lives. It doesn't only apply to financial independence. You can do it for weight loss. You could do it for whatever it is you're trying to do in your life. It's just, it gives you a rigor. And like you said before, can take some of the emotion out of it. It can help increase our likelihood for success. And this is too important not to take seriously.
Wow, you really said it. I'm so into this right now because I'm fascinated by people who have more of a brain like you do than the way I operate. Because I am not a program person. As a matter of fact, I can barely stick to a routine, which I know I need. And I'm much more of a creative, kind of visionary. Implementation and execution are definitely the weaker points. So this is so good to me because I know the value of it. It's just my brain works very differently, and I have to literally lock myself in a chair and force myself to think this way and do these things. Well,
you have strengths that others aren't going to have on when it comes to this, right? You're going to see angles that maybe others are missing. You're going to find creative solutions. There's a lot of strengths that other people would love to have and being able to think the way you do. And that's what's really cool about this is you don't even have to build the plan yourself. You can actually sit down with someone. That's what I'm doing. I sit down with people and I'm like, okay, I will help you build your plan. Let's just do it together. And I walk and you ask the questions. It's a conversation. And then the person's defining, oh, that's a project. That's a milestone. Okay, we'll measure it this way. We'll measure it that way. And boom, you walk out with the plan. And now it's yours. Now it's up to you on how you want to run it.
It does feel good to hit those milestones.
Oh yeah, definitely.
However, and how do you motivate people who are more like me and like they want the milestone and they get super excited about the idea of the milestone, but the actually walking through the process is a little trickier.
Just making it as easy as possible. Yeah. That's the beauty here. There's no like, oh, now you have to become an expert in like credit score. No, you don't have to know anything about credit scores. Here are a list of tasks for your debt elimination project. Yeah. And you're going to go and do these things. You're going to go and start making these payments to this card. And then you're going to go and do this on this other card. And then what happens is it's really easy to follow those tasks. Anyone could follow them, right? And so they're doing that. They're feeling some level of accountability because they're the one taking the action. But what's happening is then they're seeing the report. They're seeing how their actions are moving the needle towards the outcome, which is their project goal and ultimately their overarching program goal, which is their financial independence. And that just feels good. And ultimately, you want more tasks when that's done because you realize you can get really far if you have even more things to do.
Yeah. Oh, I like this so much. And, to some extent, and I've learned this from myself, you have to take your feelings out of it. Your feelings really don't matter. What matters is some discipline and some good habits and some systems. So, would you agree with that? Or
I would. And then that's why it's important to like listen to people you can trust, right? Because if you have someone leading you a certain way and you don't really know, and emotionally you want, let's say you like this person, you want to listen to this person. Well, that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to get you to your outcome. Your motivation for doing that thing is more likely tied to that relationship with that individual and less towards your financial independence. But as long as it's measurable, you can at least be honest with yourself if regardless of your motivation, if it worked or not. And that's part of the key. Everything has to be measurable because if it's not, then we can't have those honest conversations. And if let's say you go and talk to a financial advisor, you say, well, why were you making the moves you were making? Oh, well, my cousin wanted to help me and said I should go and invest in these fringe stocks and I should go do this, and I should go do that. Like, okay, great. Well, I'm glad you have a good relationship with your cousin. Here's how we're going to do your portfolio. We're going to change all of it. We're going to move to these things and we're going to help you get closer to your goals. And that's completely fine because you're measuring. They were able to help you with that quickly.
Yeah, the measuring is crucial. And I usually, a whole part of a program I have is setting up these money dates that you do regularly. And that's part of it is to be looking at things. And if we don't, it's very easy to push that off and say, yeah, I can't do it today. I meant to do it today, but I didn't. I'll do it next week and next week and next week. So, having this kind of routine around that is incredibly important because time is important when it comes to money. So.
Absolutely. And like we said earlier, if you have avoidance behaviors and you're putting it off, it's for a reason, but eventually you will be forced to react. And it's so much more costly and painful to put it off. It's better to just do it and understand that, yeah, there's some upfront work to making your plan. There is, because you have to do some deep soul searching about what you want and like look at your expenses, understand what your future costs might look like. But you can go do that. It's mostly math stuff. I actually built a free smart tool that I have on my website that anyone can use. It's not paid, completely free. It's the one I used. I just made it into a template. You can go and put your numbers in. You can start to see where you stand. And from there, you can build your plan. And when you have your plan, the effort isn't that much. It's like the money gates, right? You need to see, I have a task to go look at my monthly expenses. I have a task to go in and close that credit or freeze that credit card or whatever it is. It depends on what you're trying to go and what your financial profile looks like.
Yeah, I love that. And that's a great point too, because originally when I first started coaching people, I would say, yeah, put a money date on your calendar every month. And they'd put it, but then when they got there, they didn't know what to do. So because there was no real plan and associated tasks with it. So what you're talking about is really fleshing that out. I'd love to know, so, you had these great jobs in the tech industry. You knew you were making good money. You knew you could live, on a certain amount. At what point did you decide I am going to retire early? Like,
Yeah, this one's a little bit more of an embarrassing story for me, to be honest. So I had passed my goal, and that felt really good. And my spouse knew about what we were doing, and was supporting, this and everything. And I had passed the goal. And if anyone who follows tech at all knows, there's been a lot of layoffs.
Right.
There's been a lot of churn, a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress. And so there's been a lot of conversations I was having at work where a couple of things were happening. One, layoffs had happened and I lost a bulk of my reports. And that work didn't go away. They didn't cancel any of that work.
Yeah.
It mostly got absorbed by me. So I was working way too many hours. It was actually causing health issues, and I was fully burned out. And burnout, it's real. Like there was, I think, what was the stat I had read? Something like 72% of Americans feel stressed about money, and at work, 35% of entrepreneurs are now experiencing burnout. So there's a real cost to this, and it's hard to get over it. Anyways, I knew money wasn't an issue for me. My motivator was it was the corporate agenda. It was trying to make sure we were successful with these programs. It was making sure that my employees that were still there were okay, that, they were really stressed out. I was picking up work where I could. I was trying to rehire. They made a mistake. They realized, we should have fired all the program managers. Whoops. We don't know what's happening anymore. Can we go hire them back? I said, yes, of course we can hire them back. But, it's going to take time and I have to retrain them. So that was a mistake they had made. Anyways, I'm going through all that. And I ended up going on my 20th wedding anniversary with my spouse. And we're on an island far away from my job. And I'm kind of talking about work a little bit. Well, I shouldn't be talking about work on my anniversary, but I couldn't help it. And my spouse is like, okay, what are you doing? What's wrong with you? You're past your goal. You're more than fine. You had like multiple financial advisors say you should have already done this a while ago. Even your physical therapist and doctor said you should do this, that you were super smart and lucky for even having a program and working towards this. You're the only one that in a position you can walk away from that environment. Why aren't you doing it? So she kicked me in the butt, and that was great. And I needed that because sometimes we don't make the leap. And there's fear in there of like, what is our life going to look like? Even though we know the math is okay, there's a psychology piece to it. Yeah. And it can be really hard to work through that barrier. But you have support, like I did, both with my financial advisor and my spouse. I realized, okay, my job's going to go on without me. Eventually, they would have let me go, or I would have retired from it. That thing wasn't forever. I will go in, I'll give them a few months to make sure everything is okay. And it got a lot of ways when I announced an early retirement, a lot of attention, and it created a lot of conversations with a lot of really brilliant people who felt very trapped by the clock there, who felt like they were just going through the motions on autopilot. They didn't know how to get away. They weren't doing the kinds of things I had been doing. And it was financial things. Yeah. Like, I mean, I would talk to people who are making way more money than me who would pay 2%, 3% to a financial manager who wasn't really even doing anything. At least they didn't know what they were doing. I'm like, shouldn't you at least know what they're doing? Maybe they're doing wonderful things. I have no idea, but you should at least know. And you should have a goal. What's your goal? They're like, I don't know. I'll retire eventually, I guess. That's not a goal. And that's autopilot. And so a lot of people were on autopilot, and the climate of what was happening in the industry was like, it was just like water on their face. It woke them up like, whoa, I can't just be beholden to whatever's happening. It was good for a while, but now it's bad. I'm stuck. And that felt really scary for a lot of people. And that drove my purpose, because I'm like, hey, I could go do 1,000 different things in my early retirement. But if I could help people who feel that way, that is a worthwhile thing to do. And I'll feel very proud for being able to contribute in that way.
I love that. And you've really been doing it. So you've created a lot since then. Do you have new plans, new goals? I mean,
yeah,
or otherwise?
Life is about milestones. I wanted to be present. So one thing my wife did when she kicked me in the butt was make sure that I had that time with my kids. My son moved out. He went to college. So I got extra time with him. I'm here with my daughter now in her last 2 years. So that's great. So family's always a goal. You started diversifying in new ways. I'm like expanding my portfolio in ways I can afford to do now because my income is low. So you can, by the way, financial programs, they don't stop just because you hit your number, they evolve. And so now, because I'm in a lower income life, I can tax gain harvest. I can do different diversification techniques. And I teach about all that stuff because people should understand that financial literacy, it's something that you can always build a muscle for. And you can always feel like you have some level of control. Like I feel great. I feel like I know how to hedge a market. I can stay ahead. I can keep my portfolio doing well. And I make these little moves and they make me feel like I'm okay. I don't need to go back to a job. I'll never need to go back to a job. The freedom is real. And so now I spend my time writing. I'm writing a fiction novel. I'm spending time. I foster dogs. Actually, here you can see the one that we're fostering.
One in your lap, huh?
This is Cabo.
We
were fostering this little guy. We're doing things like that, and I'm teaching. I'm getting a wealth management degree because I was like, hey, I'm helping people. Maybe there's more I can learn. Yeah. So I'm halfway through that, and I'm volunteer teaching around my state because there's teenagers who just have zero financial literacy, and I worry about the youth going forward.
I'm with you on that. I worry about a lot of people who, we're dependent on money. I mean, whether you like it or not, that's the way this world works. And so to not educate kids coming out of school and people in general around money it's becoming more and more like criminal to me. I mean, I kind of can't believe it. It's like, what are we doing? You have to live on this and you have to do well with it, but nobody's teaching you how. So
I couldn't agree more with that.
I am. And so I think it's just kind of a wow moment to think about. But that's great that you're doing that. I mean, life feels really good when what you're doing has meaning. Yeah. I mean, hopefully you can get that in your job, but if you can't, I really love the idea of getting it in retirement. And that's why I think the word retirement is so misconstrued now.
Yeah. And if you have meaning in your job, I'm so happy for you, but that job's not forever. Yeah. You still need to find a greater meaning outside of that job. So, that process starting it early is a lot less painful than after the job ends. So I've met folks who haven't done that well, and my heart goes out to them. And it's hard to help someone, after something that was their whole life is gone. Yeah. It can be really rough.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I've always been a big proponent of, find meaning in your work, but sometimes it doesn't last, and that can be devastating. And a lot of things that have a termination date, whether you're an athlete or a politician or whatever it is, some of these things don't go on forever. So, sure. And today, you mentioned something before you even came on about helping people feel more in control, which makes you feel, when you don't feel like you even have any control, you definitely don't feel like you have freedom. And feeling control in today's world is, in my opinion, harder than ever. Yeah. But, do you have a few tips just to kind of gain that sense of control, even if you feel pretty down and out right now?
Yeah, I mean, like there's obviously financial things you can do, right? If you're feeling a lack of control financially, there's definitely things you can do. For instance, like if you feel like you're oversaturated in your portfolio in a certain way, and the market, you're seeing a lot, 20, 15, whatever % loss, and there's a lack of control there. Well, there are probably some diversification or hedging and other things you should have been doing to protect those assets a little more. Same with businesses, right? Like, there's a way we protect our businesses. There's insurances that we think about having. These are just, as a program manager, I'm also a risk manager. So I'm always thinking about how do you mitigate with a contingency, have a plan B, a plan C, that type of thing. And so if it's financial stuff, the good news is there is a solution, and it's one conversation and you will likely have the solution to whatever it is that's making you feel out of control financially. Now, if that thing happens to not be you, but it's your employer, your spouse, you're a dependent, that's a lot more complicated. But again, that just means the conversation's broader. Usually it means your conversation can't just be with an advisor. It's going to be with that employer. It's going to be with that spouse. And there are contingencies to everything. There are. The best contingencies are the proactive ones, right? It's the pre-mortem, not the post-mortem. When you're doing that, you're really always thinking ahead. And when you're thinking ahead, you're using your logical brain. When you're thinking in the moment, you're using your emotional brain. And the emotional brain doesn't always do the best thing for us that we would hope it would do. We don't even understand why we do it half the time. So I would say that. But ultimately, for me, it always came down to knowing there was a plan. Because I think with a lack, and I'm sure most people listening to this probably has a plan, you have an idea, you care about your financial literacy, you care about your independence. And I think I love that so much. I would say though, like, how much is your plan really tuned to give you mechanisms of control? That's kind of what I would challenge in your plan. If you're paying someone else to manage your plan, that's fine. But you should know that there's certain things you can do to tweak certain things based on how you're feeling or what's going on. Like you should feel like you have access to change things. Mm-hmm. If it's a plan you're running, having that level of detail, like I was mentioning, task level things where you can have that minutia, you can move things, and that there's a smart goal in place that you can see the impact of what you did. Right. That's real control. That's control with data. So that's the kind of thing, and knowing you can review it with someone, because we all have blind spots. Like if you're feeling a lack of control because of something, and it might just because you're missing information. Mm-hmm. Collecting it is the first step. And that's like, if I don't know where all my money's going, well, when's the last time you looked at your expenses? You have to go and just go and take that step. Now, of course, it's not always financial. It could just be anxiety about the market, about your job and potential, like that's financial as well. But the anxiety that you might be feeling might be about your role as a caretaker or provider. It can be deeper than that. Those are so important to have too. The best financial advisors will not just talk about money. They'll talk about that stuff. Yeah. And it's super important, but you have to talk about life, the whole picture. Money is just a means to what you're trying to do to live your best life.
Oh, I love this. And yes, I agree. Conversations are so important. And I think when we find ourselves in these anxiety, induced states, we don't want to talk to people. We want to hide. We want to hide our situation and not talk about it.
It can be embarrassing.
And it's the exact opposite of what's going to help you find a solution. So you have to force that.
If someone's making you feel embarrassed about what you're talking about, you're probably not talking to the right person about that thing, is what I've learned. We all make mistakes, all of us. My mistakes are really in my face because I can see the measurement of the impact of them. I'm like, I got a negative, 27% return on that thing. That sucks. But I always think, okay, what can I do to not repeat that mistake? And ultimately, that's great. That's real control. When we don't shame ourselves on our mistakes, we use those as learning opportunities to ensure that we're just always doing better in the future. Then you're really growing, and growing is everything, I think.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And most of us do make mistakes, with money because we're not educated anyway. And so we make mistakes and then we learn. And it's a sad system. But, as long as we use that experience to not keep repeating it. But yeah, this is so good. So, I love that you're doing this. You could be doing anything in your free life.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you. I'm only doing it because I'm enjoying it. As soon as if I'm not enjoying it, I'll stop. Because right now I feel like I'm actually giving and helping, and people are telling me it's helping. If I didn't feel like that was true, I would probably just be going off and making stories to help distract people.
I love that. Well, keep that fiction writing going. That sounds really great. So tell us a little about how people can find you, engage with you. I mean, if you want that, you are retired. I don't know if you want a million people knocking on your door, but
my goal is to help as many people as I can. So that's how I'm spending my time. I put everything on a website because I realized you're going to hear 1,000 things and it's impossible to keep them all straight. Yeah. So if you just go to escapetheclock.com, I try to make it easy. The book is up there. So if you want the guide on how to make that program plan and learn the program stuff, it's in the book. Escape the Clock. I would definitely pick that up. It's won a few awards. I'm very humbled by that. I didn't think that could happen. That was really cool. I guess I took a unique approach to the picture, which, was recognized. And I love that. I did put my heart into that book. Yeah. So that's at the website. You can also schedule time with me at the website. Like I said, I do free consultations. So, I'm trying to help. You can also find my podcast, but you can also find it on every platform: Spotify, Amazon, Apple, YouTube. So
that also Escape the Clock?
It's called Escape the Clock. It's a weekly podcast. Haven't missed a week yet. I'm interviewing great people who have a lot of financial, because I didn't want to just be me talking all the time. I do episodes like that. I actually just finished a 2-part series on it, people who are new to investing and how to get into the stock market, not just on how to invest in the stock market, but how to build a portfolio that you can actually create cash flow without selling shares, things like that. Okay. So I did a 2-part series on that, but I have other guests coming in all the time. And again, it's about financial literacy, right? This is a free podcast. I'm just trying to get people different mediums that make it easy for them to get the information, be it with me directly through a book or through the media of audio or video. So that's what you can do. EscapeTheClock.com. You can find probably what you're looking for.
Ooh, that's great. And I'm definitely reading your book because I really want to get my head around some of this, kind of program management ideas. So.
Oh, you'll get a lot of that.
I know. I'm excited. I'm excited. So, okay. Well, Dan, can't thank you enough. This was a great conversation. You're a great podcast guest, so I'm sure your podcast is terrific too. And I encourage everybody to subscribe and go listen and go to escapetheclock.com and see what else you've got. And very generous of you to give your time and offer consultations as well. So thank you. Thank you for all you're doing in your post-work life. So.
Thank you, Michelle. It's a dream to be on your show. It's very cool.
Well, you are a fantastic guest. So thank you so much. And listeners, thank you. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you love the show. I really encourage you to share it and let other people know about what's going on escapetheclock.com. And, Dan's offering his time and expertise and knowledge. So, hey, take advantage of it. So thank you so much for listening. You can find us on all the podcast platforms and on the Limit Free Life YouTube channel. Please continue to rate and review the show if you liked it. We love that if you do it. And so thank you again. Thank you, Pod Experience. Tony, so much for handling everything on the show. And we'll see you next week.